Welcome to Bigfoot
and the Bunny.
This is a couple's journey into the mysterious,
the unknown, and the paranormal.
I'm your host, Chris Carr.
And I'm your host, Kristen Johnson.
Together we are Bigfoot and the Bunny.
And we're live. Welcome to Bigfoot and the Bunny. Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday,
folks.
everyone.
I'm Chris Carr.
And I am Kristen Johnson.
And we are psyched. We got a pretty amazing show. I don't say this a lot, but we do, and we're really excited about it.
Yes.
We're going to get right to things in a moment. We do hope you guys are checking out our other show, Dark Horse Paranormal Podcast. Is appearing on the Pun Network, Paranormal Unity. Did I say that right? I'm live, so I'm kind of goofing things up. Network, Pun TV, and of course our own pages, Dark Horse Paranormal and Bigfoot and the Bunny on Thursdays. Give a little shout out to our friend Ken, who was on Thursday, and we had a good time talking to him.
Yes, we did.
And
that's Ken Allen from the Wizard's Table.
From the Wizard's Table, which I believe is on today. I think he's got Patty Negro. So
that's right.
You check that out around 6 o'clock, I believe.
Right after us.
It's coming on the Facebooks if you're out there. And just give a big shout out to our friends and people in chat that are already joining. Hey there, Stuart Hallett from Maine, Mars Hill, Maine.
Oh wow, Maine.
So very cool.
Yes.
We're going to bring on our guest here. She is the author of the trilogy, House of Darkness, House of Light, known and maybe not always wanting to be known as the Conjuring daughter of the Conjuring House. And her name is Andrea Perron. She's also the host of A World Awakening, a show that you can find here on Facebook. If you're watching us on Facebook on that platform, it's awesome. We're going to talk about that as well. And let's bring her right on. Hey there, Andrea.
Hi.
So that was a very short intro.
Yeah.
We're scared. I didn't have a lot prepared today, but I figured we'd get right to things.
It's okay. Are you getting an echo? Are you getting feedback, sweetheart?
No feedback. A little bit of background noise, maybe.
Okay. All right. So I turned my volume down. That should probably help. It goes up, it goes down, depending on every interview that I do. I have done 26 hours of interviews this week.
Oh, good Lord.
I still have 2 more to do tomorrow.
You are a very, very busy person, and I don't think people understand that what comes with you being a person like yourself out in the paranormal field and doing lectures and shows and different things and interviews like this one. They keep you very busy.
Yeah. The thing that cracks me up the most is when I occasionally get to start going through my hello, Lisa Marie. When I start going through my plethora of messages, Wales, oh my God, I have Welsh in me on my mother's side, and I start going every now and then when I have a few minutes. I start to look at the buildup of Facebook messages, and what cracks me up the most is people saying, well, when are you going to write your next book? If I sat there and answered the Facebook messages that I receive anywhere from 200 to 500 messages a day.
Oh my goodness.
If I were to answer all of them, I would never, ever write anything. I would never get anything done. I would just simply answer Facebook messages. And then what's particularly disconcerting, and I'm sure that both of you are well aware of this too, but once you answer a message and somebody sees that you have, they grab you.
Yes.
You know, not that I'm, in total opposition to being grabbed once in a while, but it is that engagement, whether it's 5, 10, 15 minutes. In that amount of time, I could have answered 10 or 15 of the messages. And so I understand that people want to engage with me, and I appreciate it. I would be nowhere without my readers and my followers. I would just be languishing in obscurity. But hold on, my dog is caught in my lace. Oh my God, honey.
Puppy.
There you go. That's my baby. Here, you go down and lay on the princess pallet. There you go.
She gets all the grabs she wants.
Yeah.
She does.
Actually, we got to sit next to you at the Mass Paracon recently and got to meet you a little better. And you gave us a hug, and it was pure love and light.
It really was.
We walked away ecstatic.
Oh, that's so sweet. I appreciate that. I appreciate both of you. We did have it was relatively brief, but a lovely interlude. And that's when you asked me if I'd come on your show, and I told you I would be happy to do that. And then I had to put you off for weeks because I've been doing nothing but traveling. Leaving Monday morning for Colorado. I will be back Wednesday evening, leaving Thursday morning for Rhode Island, and won't be back until Sunday.
Sure.
And so I literally barely have enough time to unpack and repack and then get back on a plane again. So it's, this is, as well as anybody in the field, this is paranormal Christmas, from like mid-September until mid-November. It's just constant paranormal 24/7. Hi, Liz. But I'm really glad that we were able to get this scheduled today, because you are both so warm and wonderful and so open and receptive. And I just thought, well, couldn't we do a fantastic show together? So I'm happy to join you today.
Thank you for taking the time to talk to us. And, again, it is good to note people don't understand how busy you actually are, and you're doing all this flying around. There's a lot of travel involved. I think it's Ocean State.
Yes.
It's next week, right? Paranormal, Paracon. Ocean State.
Yes.
With Ken DaCosta, and I'm sure you were part of that as well. I'm sure you're a lecturer, and we're going to be popping by and checking that out as well. So that's a big event out here in Rhode Island, because we are broadcasting from Rhode Island. I try to hide my accent as best I can, Andrea. Out here and there.
I can't get rid of mine. I say my R's sometimes. Other than that, forget about it.
Forget about it. Yeah.
It's somewhere between a cross of Boston and Brooklyn. There's just something.
It really is.
Rhode Island,
kind of wedged in the middle. It's got a little bit of both. Yeah.
It really does.
It really does. It does. But a lot of people know you obviously from the Conjuring movies. So James Wan's classic horror film, now being one of the largest, the real go-to movie in the paranormal. I know when I was growing up, it was things like Amityville Horror, and now with them kids these days, it's The Conjuring, and much about it. Obviously, you grew up in that house. You were the real life daughter. Much about the film, it wasn't real. I know this from talking to you in the past. I know the relationship with the Warrens wasn't quite as warm as it's detailed in the movie, and the events and spookiness that happened. While some of it is true, I think it'd be easier to say what really happened as far as what was in the movie, and as opposed to what didn't, because so much of it was fiction. Is that accurate?
Yes. I would say about 95% of it was conjured in the mind of the screenwriters, who were so overwhelmed by reading my books. Well, James Wan too. He read. Everybody associated with the film read my books, and James was actually kind of funny. He's like, "Oh hell no, we can't tell this story because nobody will stay to the end to watch the movie." So they cherry picked. The film was never intended to be a portrayal or a representation of Chowder.
Yeah. I have to make I need to make Canal and chowder when he gets here.
I know it. It's the only thing to eat. Chowder and clam cakes.
Yes.
Rocky Point, John.
Yep, Rocky Point, baby. Rocket at Rocky Point. Oh God, I miss that place. That was a treasure lost to the state. It really was. But especially when the Shore Dinner Hall burned down, that was awful. I cried. I did. I was like, oh my God, how could they have let that happen? How could they have let that happen? What a shame. What a loss.
Yes.
But like part of my childhood went up in flames. It was just awful. But anyway,
Lincoln Park were big amusement parks in our area here in Rhode Island and Southeast Mass.
Years.
And a place where we all spent, I'm sure, a good portion of our childhood because, we didn't have the internet. You went to amusement parks. Crescent Park as well. Yeah.
Crescent Park as well. Yeah. Oh, the carousel at Crescent Park. There was nothing like it.
Beautiful.
So beautiful.
Nothing like it. Absolutely. A piece of art. It was a piece of art.
It really was.
Yeah. But no, the film was not ever intended to be a characterization or representation of the books. It was based on the case files of Ed and Lorraine Warren. Naturally, a lot that happened didn't make it into the case files. I haven't read them, so I don't know that for sure. But, the whole entire series of Conjuring films was brought to light to glorify not only the reputation, but also the decades of work that Ed and Lorraine did as paranormal investigators. And they were pioneers in the field. There is no question about that. They put themselves out there in ways that, virtually nobody else did at the time. And of course, they stood on the shoulders of the giant Hans Holzer and others that, went back all the way to the mid to late 1800s when the metaphysical movement really first took hold in the United States. But, they did good and important work. And I don't think that anybody can legitimately fault them for what they attempted to do to help our family and others. However, they were in over their heads at our home. And Mrs. Warren admitted as much to me 40 years later, 40 years after the last time that I saw her. She told me that they had no idea what they were walking into, which is why The Conjuring turned out to be the first film in the series. And James Wan, who I later discovered was an aficionado of the paranormal, and particularly of the work of Ed and Lorraine Warren, he's like, why don't I know this story? Why have I never heard about this story? And it was because my mother refused to give them permission to tell it. And there was a reason for that, and it was a really good reason. But that's written about in volume 3 after we had already left the farmhouse. Mistakes were made. They were human beings. They were devout Roman Catholics. The film had numerous discrepancies, but probably the biggest one was that it juxtaposed the devout Roman Catholic Warrens to what was perceived as the godless heathen Perrons, and nothing could have been further from the truth. My father had intended on serving as he did in the Navy, and Colette from Liverpool. That's where the Beatles came from. Only the greatest rock band of all time ever.
You don't mind my popping those up, people saying hello.
No, they're wonderful. It's so great. It was, James Wan was so overwhelmed by the books that he would not even step foot in Rhode Island. They ended up choosing a house in Wilmington, North Carolina to film the movie because he felt like it was a safe distance away from Rhode Island.
Wow. Tidbit we didn't know about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
He would not have anything to do, Stephen from Paranormal United Network. That's wonderful. You've got a great following worldwide. That's very impressive. I'm so delighted.
Thank you.
I'm coming to the UK next August. I'll be in the UK doing a tour of England, paranormal tour of England. So I'll be putting information up and out about that soon. So I hope that some of my British friends will join us because it's going to be phenomenal. But anyway, yeah, James was absolutely overwhelmed by the story. And he, bless his heart, really wanted to be as authentic with it as he could be. Now, I will tell you another tidbit. When I found out that James Wan was coming on as the director, one of the producers called me, Rob called me, and he's like, "We got James Wan as the director." My head blew off. I was like, "Oh, great. You just hired the king of slasher porn to make my intimate family story. Good choice. That's excellent. Let's have some blood and gore." You know, I mean, and I had not even seen any of his films. I certainly never watched Saw. Absolutely. I do not pollute my brain with images like that. I do not. I knew his work only by reputation, and I was freaking mortified. And Rob, the producer, he's like, no, Andrea, you don't understand. He's, actually, he's a very intellectual person. He's very well read. He's deeply steeped in the paranormal, and I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to hear it at all. I was so sickened by the notion that he would be at the helm of the project. I didn't even tell anybody in my family for weeks. Weeks. And then I went out to the set. I was a contributor. I was involved in as like kind of a consultant on the film, even though nothing that I offered ever made any difference. They knew exactly what they're going to do. It was just a waste of my breath. But I met him, and the thing that most impressed me, he impressed me. But what I was most impressed with was the way he treated the girls that were portraying us, the 5 daughters. And you would have thought he birthed them himself. That's how protective he was of them. Our concerns as the actual living children, and all 5 of us were alive at the time. We lost my sister April tragically, very suddenly and tragically in 2017. A thing I will never, ever get over, ever. No one should expect me to. But when we saw how he was with the girls, our concern was that they would end up being traumatized making the movie. That was our big concern. We did not want them. There's a line in my books that is actually repeated several times. Childhood trauma, the gift that keeps on giving. And we didn't want them to be traumatized. And yes, they had a very good support system around them. They had their parents, they had their agents, they had, people around them that could easily and quickly remind them it's only a movie, it's all in the script, it's only a movie, it's all in the script. Mm-hmm. But, that kind of an experience can certainly linger with a person. That was a difficult time for me because I had never seen a horror movie in my life, ever. And so I had to watch The Conjuring about 9 times. Warner Brothers was flying me all over the country, from the premiere in Hollywood all the way to Rhode Island, down to Georgia, Florida. I mean, everywhere it was opening, I was there. Mm-hmm. And a representative and a reflection of a film that I knew was predominantly fictionalized. And every time I sat in a theater full of people who were gasping and agape at what they were seeing, I felt like standing up and shouting, "This isn't real. This isn't real." And the ones that were throwing popcorn at the screen, I just wanted to snap their little fingers off. You're making fun and making a mockery of my family's intimate story.
Right.
I just, there were times that it was very trying. But what I try to do is focus on the good that came from it, because, as I've said often, had it not been for a phenomenally successful feature film, our true story would not be out in the world the way that it is. It would not have, countless documentaries made about it. It would not have shot me up to the pinnacle of the paranormal circuit. No one would know who I am. No one would know who our story, what our story is. It was because of The Conjuring that the true story, for those that were really actually interested in following up on the film with the truth, since the subtitle on the film's poster was based on a true story. It was based on the case files of the Warrens, and bears no actual resemblance to our story. What we endured in that house was much deeper, much more intense, much more disturbing. But my mother's objection was that she thought, her hovering over my sister with a pair of scissors was just so beyond the pale and so ridiculous that she didn't even have an adverse reaction to that. But what she really objected to was representing our family as somehow not spiritually grounded or centered. And as I started to say, and then completely got off topic, is that, my father was born and raised in the Roman Catholic tradition. He went to parochial school. He was an altar boy for years and years. He went into the Navy after he graduated from high school. And then his intention was to do his tour of service in the Korean War, and then to return home and enter the seminary and become a priest. So I don't know how more grounded in any religion you can be than to have that be your predetermined life path. And then my mother got in the way. He met her while he was in the Navy, and she was still too young to even date, let alone think about marriage. She was only 15 when they met, and they married when she was 19. Wow. But he got to know her family, drove down from Virginia at the Naval Air Station every weekend, drove all the way to South Georgia to go spend time with my mother so he could hold her hand, because back in the day, that was first base. And that was as close as he was allowed to get to her, because her parents were like hawks, watching over him. Hello, Gail from California.
Hello, Gail Hyson.
Hi. So, all bets were off when he fell in love with Mom. And, I'm really glad that happened, because that's why I'm here. And my lovely sisters. So, when we moved into the farm, my mother found the farm in 1970. And the reason that we did was because a series of very unfortunate events had happened at our home and in the surrounding environment in Cumberland, Rhode Island. And she was so upset about, feeling like we were being closed in on there. And there was a lot of really bad behavior that ensued from several of the boys in the neighborhood. And it was just, she just kept saying, I want out of here. I want to raise my girls in the country, a place in the country. I want a place in the country. And my father was like, Carolyn, we've only lived here for 5 years. We don't even have, there's no equity in this house yet. We can't afford to do this. And then he went away on a business trip, and she found the farm in June of 1970, called on it, went to look at it the next day, and emptied our family bank account to put earnest money down on the house without him even knowing it.
Wow.
That's how absolutely certain she was that this was the place.
She's
Well, of
out
course, you know, his head blew off his shoulders when he came home and she said, I bought a farm. No. Yeah, really? Okay. You know, I mean,
it's a little more than like an overpriced
you know,
trip to Target.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
You spend how much?
She's lucky she didn't buy the farm when he found out. Oh my God, you know that old phrase.
Laughing at.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah, and you know, ghosts weren't on the radar for us. My mother is very well educated and very historically based. She has a lot of background as a historian. And so she fell in love with one of the last original colonial homes in America, and was just transfixed and mesmerized by its beauty. And I mean, the only time the word ghost ever came up for us was when we were at church together, and the priest would say, "And the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost," or on Halloween when she'd pick one rather tattered white cotton sheet and decide who was going to be the ghost for Halloween, so she knew how big to cut the holes in it for eyes.
Right.
That was it. I mean, to tell you. So, you know, color us surprised when we moved into one of the most active haunted locations, if not in this country, in the world.
Yes.
We didn't know its reputation. It was not, you know, you think it's a taboo subject now. Well, back then it was nothing that anybody discussed. If it was discussed at all, it was whispered about, and something that might have been talked about around a campfire, but it was certainly not a field of study the way that it is now. We didn't have any experiences at the farm until the day we moved in. And then 4 of the 7 of us saw a full body apparition, and my sister Nancy saw him disappear right before her eyes. All of this within 10 to 15 minutes. When I saw him, he appeared as a full life, flesh and blood human being who did not acknowledge me when I walked past him and said, "Good morning, sir." I didn't know he was dead. Wow. I didn't know that he came from probably the mid 1800s. He looked perfectly alive and well to me. But he looked through me like he didn't even see me. And chances are he didn't see me because he was in an alternate dimension. I could see into his dimension. He could not really see me. But he seemed transfixed on Mr. Kenyon. And I think that in my heart, I feel like he was there to say goodbye, because Mr. Kenyon was packing the last of his belongings. So, you know, right from the start, literally from the start of the film, The Conjuring had it wrong. We were not a family that had moved to Rhode Island from New Jersey. We would never have been caught dead in New Jersey. Whoever designed the roads of New Jersey was on, I don't know what kind of drugs. But it would, no, we were Rhode Islanders through and through. We lived in a suburb of Providence. We moved to the remote rural area of Harrisville, Rhode Island. But there were things in the film that were what I call the cosmic kisses of the movie. The things that tell me it's okay. Even though it's a total mischaracterization, even though it doesn't get any part of the story right in terms of the minutia and the detail, there were things in the film that were absolutely inexplicable that could not be explained any other way than that this was the cosmos saying, this is okay. Just rest with it, easy in your soul, that good will come of it. And one of the things is you might remember the scene. Have both of you seen the film? I'm assuming you both seen the film. Okay. One of the scenes where the camera kind of rounds the corner on the second floor of the fake house, and you see a picture of a white cat, a folk art drawing of a white cat up on the mantle board in the room that was supposed to be mine. Shanley Caswell played me in the film.
Yes.
I have that picture. It's out in our parlor right now. I had to photograph it to use for the live stream to show people that I have a duplicate of that photograph. Now, Julie, I can't remember her last name, but the set and stage designer had to go into a props department at Warner Brothers about the size of Fenway Park that was just stuff from the 70s to design the set. And of all of the thousands and thousands and thousands of things that she had to choose from that dated to that era, she chose that picture. And I don't even know if it's a paint by number or if it was mass produced or where it came from. All I know is that when the day before I turned 13, the first autumn that we were in the house, we moved in. We bought it in December of 2019. Oh my God, 1970. And we moved in. Mr. Kenyon was not ready to move out. My mother refused to move during the holidays, and who could blame her? So we moved in January of 1971, even though we were already the rightful owners of the property. And it was an awakening, truly an awakening. But, you know, the film represents it as we came, you know, that my father was a truck driver. Under no circumstances would not that there's anything wrong with being a truck driver. It is a perfectly legitimate line of work. And my father did drive for a living. But, you know, they kind of, they tried to simplify a lot of the details. It was easier to show Dad as a truck driver with a big moving van out in the yard than it was to explain the details of what he actually did for a living. But he owned his own business, and he had what was called at the time a trunk business. He was in the jewelry business, and he worked with manufacturers, and he would go down to Providence, Rhode Island was the center of the universe in terms of fine and fashion jewelry at the time. And so he did business with a lot of manufacturers, and he would go and load his truck up, and then he'd drive all over hell and high water to his different clients that were as far north as Quebec, far west as Ohio, and far south as Florida. So he was on the road a lot and had clients scattered all over the place, you know, small businesses that he would take and restock with his wares. It was a very, very hard way to make a living, and it was an extremely lonely way to make a living. I'm sure he would have preferred to just be home with his family. There's no question in my mind about that. But when he did come home, he would be inundated with a barrage of stories about this happened and that happened and the other thing happened, and he just didn't want to believe it. It took him a long time, decades, to admit that it was less about him not believing in spirits than it was being afraid that he had moved his family into an environment that he could not control. And so it was a knee-jerk, fear-based reaction. It took him a couple of years before he started having very significant experiences of his own before he would actually admit to it. And in the interim, I'm sorry, Chris, what was that, honey?
That had to be difficult. Being away so much, and I can see why they would, you know, simplify it and just say he was a trucker, but to come in and it's just hear all these stories and then feel helpless because, okay, now I've got to, you know, bring the jury over to Florida and be on the road again.
Family here.
It's really tough. Yeah.
It was very difficult for him. And, you know, I give him all, I mean, the man, there's nobody on earth that works harder than my dad. Even to this day, at 86 years old, he went out and wrote a contract today to film another television commercial for another small business in this area. I mean,
Wow.
he's an amazing, amazing man with endless, boundless energy. I can't keep up with him. I just can't, and he's got 22 years on me.
Yeah, he looks great. I've seen pictures of him on Facebook and stuff, and he looks good. So,
yeah, he does. And he travels with me a lot. He's not coming with me to Rhode Island this year. It's going to kind of be an up and back thing because the event's only really one day plus a meet and greet. But and he has to stay home and take care of the Princess Peanut Buttercup. So he does because, she's the baby. She's the baby.
Right.
Yeah, she is.
Grandpa.
So what were some of the things that like really did happen in the movie? And I know it's very little that really happened in real life when you were there.
The part where Christine's laying in bed and gets her leg pulled, jerked, that happened. Nancy, that scene was probably, of all the scenes in the film, probably closest to real life.
Wow.
With the girls screaming and the parents running and dad looking behind the door, doesn't see anything behind the door, and there it is, and the smell in the room, and all of that. I mean, that was probably the closest to genuinely real as we got in the film. I never told them. I never told the producers, nor did I write it in the book, that our family dog was killed within 10 days of moving to the farm in a bizarre way. I thought that it was just too painful, even all those years later, and that it was so sad the way that he died that I did not include it in the books because it was still all, decades later, it was still too hard for me to write about. I can still barely talk about it. That was the first death. And yet that showed up in the movie. I never told anybody about that. No, nobody. It's not in the books. They didn't get it. They did not derive that information from anybody in our family or from the books. Wow. So how Sadie, their dog, died, I don't know. But I just thought that it would start to shut people down emotionally. Like, oh my God, this is too sad. I cannot read this. This is too intense. I cannot read this. And so I made a calculated decision not to include it. Because if I had included it, writing about it would have ripped my readers' hearts out. And I wanted to focus more on our story. Our dog Schultz was his name. Was a wonderful, wonderful animal. And he went, once we were all in school, he went running out to the school bus to greet us every day when we came home. And that one day he slipped on a patch of ice and fell directly underneath the back wheel of the school bus. And God. It crushed him. And he died in my arms.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, that's heart-wrenching. Our animals they're important to us as well.
They're our family.
They are very special.
They are. At least for my family, they are, for sure. You know what? It's only been 50 years, and I still can't tell this story without getting,
And probably feels like really today. Yeah. That is the impact they have on us. Our animals are our family, and they really serve some function that I'm really try to figure out. It's like they take our pain, or they suffer a lot. They really do. Yeah. They help us. They always there for us, and they always seem to.
They teach us how to love.
Yeah,
they do.
Yes.
They teach us how to love. I'm sorry. I swear to God, I told my father before I got on, I'm like, I am not going to cry in this interview. I am just not. I'm not going to do it. Well, guess what? I got to eat some crow here.
I'm sorry. sorry to be the ones to bring it out
Yeah,
to you.
you feel bad.
It's okay. I want people to know, what was real and true about it. I will tell you that under no circumstances, as devout as Ed Warren was, and literally the only layman on the whole planet that was trained to assist in an exorcism. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Don. He would never have attempted to conduct an exorcism on his own. My mother was not possessed. My mother was attacked during a seance that went so woefully wrong that it almost cost her life. I do not blame the Warrens for that. I think that they were well intended, that they thought that they were helping, and they brought a medium and a priest to the house, and they thought that my mother was being oppressed and that she was, in the process of being possessed. That was their fear, and they wanted to do what they could to stop that process dead in its tracks. No pun intended. And it backfired in their faces. And whatever it was that came through when the medium conjured the spirits and threw open wide the doors to the netherworld, whatever it was that came through was pure unadulterated evil. It was not of this world. It spoke through my mother in a language that is either an ancient lost language or one that never existed on this planet. It curled her body into a ball in the chair in which she sat. She screamed. She howled like a banshee. She begged for the pain to stop, and she was levitated in the chair that she sat in. And within a split second, she was thrown 20 feet from the middle of our dining room into the middle of our parlor. And when her head struck the floor, everyone present in that house thought they had just seen her die. Whatever it was that attacked her did not want to kill her, or it would have. It wanted to make its presence known to the Warrens, and it did so very successfully. But I will tell you, I will go to my grave believing that the Warrens wanted to help us. They just didn't know how. My mother did not seek them out. She had no idea who they were when they came to our kitchen door. My father threw them out of the house with their entourage that night. He vehemently objected to the seance even occurring. It took Ed Warren and the priest about an hour to convince him that it was a necessity. It was the worst night of my life. None of that should have ever happened with 4 of their 5 children in the house. Nancy was the only one that had escaped away to a friend's house for the night. It was a Friday night, and she went to stay with her friend Katie, but none of the rest of us had time to skedaddle from the time that they called. There were no cell phones at the time. They called several hours before they arrived and asked my mother if they could stop by. They said nothing to her about bringing a medium, or nothing to her about the seance. My father did not want them there. He objected strenuously to even the notion of conducting this ritual in the house. He felt that it was a very dangerous thing to do. He would not participate. And
when it went south, I'm sure he was even more upset.
Oh,
He must have went ballistic.
I've never seen him.
Imagine.
My father's got a temper, and I've seen it. He can get very loud and very bombastic and boisterous, and he's just got a very passionate, pure French personality. But I've never seen my father so livid. I had never, to that point in my life, and I was 15 when that happened, I had never heard language like that come out of him. He was absolutely out of his mind angry, and threw the Warrens out, threw their entourage out. the two cinematographers had set up their state-of-the-art, remember back in the day, the huge cameras, big cameras mounted on these massive tripods, and they had set them up to record any activity in the cellar. You see, when Mr. and Mrs. Warren first showed up at the house, they didn't even identify themselves at first. She walked into our kitchen by the invitation of my mother, who saw what looked like a relatively harmless couple that obviously had to have been lost. And it was freezing outside, so she let them in to warm up. And Mrs. Warren went over to our big black stove in the kitchen, put her hand on the corner of it, and said, "I sense a malicious presence in this house. Her name is Bathsheba." Now, she knew none of the history, so I give her credit, that there was a Bathsheba in the area, that there were tales of Bathsheba being an evil woman. There were all kinds of rumors and innuendos that circulated about Bathsheba during her life, that a baby had died in her care in that house.
Right.
Nobody has the answer to that. I cannot absolve her of anything. I cannot, but I give her the full benefit of the doubt, and I am her great defender, because I don't think that you should ever accuse anybody of murder unless you've got some serious evidence to prove it. Mm-hmm. There were no DNA specialists running around then. I do know that, according to the town historian, and we don't even know if it was her own child, 3 of her 4 children died before the age of 4. But that was not an uncommon thing.
Wouldn't have been unusual, in that time.
Yep. It was, it was considered bad luck to even name your baby before they were a year old. It was a hard life, a very hard life. And she died a very old, very bitter woman. And I can understand why. And so until somebody can prove to me otherwise, sorry, I got the hiccups all of a sudden. What the hell? And I don't have a paper bag to breathe into. It'll pass. It'll go away. Okay, stop that. Just stop that. I defend her honor, because I think that she was most likely wrongly accused. But, there was an inquest held, from what the historian told my mother, and that she was let off the hook. There was no evidence that she had killed the baby, but apparently the baby in her care had been, after it died of convulsions, there was a needle found in the base of its skull. Well, there was a sewing basket in every room of every house in New England at that time. And, anything could have happened. She could have gently laid the baby in a basket full of yarn to give it a resting place. We don't know. And if you don't know, you can't rightfully accuse anybody. But in the court of public opinion, she was tried and convicted, and lived a very long, miserable life. Well, Mrs. Warren took it a step further. Not only did she identify a woman named Bathsheba, but then she blamed everything that happened in the house on her, which is why she was vilified as the evil temptress and the offending spirit in The Conjuring. And right. I will spend the rest of my life defending her honor. I will spend, I don't think if there was any proof at all that she was practicing witchcraft, if there was any proof at all that she had murdered a baby, she would not be buried in hallowed ground in the center of the Riverside Cemetery in Harrisville, Rhode Island. She would not.
Yeah, that's very true. And it's sad that her headstone was
desecrated repeatedly because of a movie.
Right. Because of the movie, and that's too bad. And you're absolutely right. Hallowed ground was a very important thing, especially then. Yeah. And you could not, be guilty of murder and get buried in such a
holy, sacred place.
A holy place. Thank you. Holy is the word I was looking for. Yeah, no, that's fascinating. It's fascinating, and just so much folklore. But you did come out with the name. What happened to your mother, I believe, is portrayed to some degree in the movie. Actually, talking to you, I think it was a lot worse than in the movie.
Yeah, it was.
And there are other things too. I know you did see apparitions a lot. I think including one of yourself, or what appeared.
Yes, I did. I didn't tell anybody for a long time. I was 17 when that happened. And I was standing in front. I had been away from home long enough to forget what supernatural cold feels like. I was just cold right through to the bone. I had just come off a plane in Providence. My father and mother flew me home for my 18th birthday. And I had just started college in Pittsburgh about 6-7 weeks earlier. Hated it. Couldn't wait to get home. Couldn't wait to get back to my family and my farmhouse and my spirits. And you know what feels like the only place that's ever felt like home to me, literally. Wow. I'm standing on the hearthstone. All of a sudden, I feel the whole entire right side of my body go stone cold. And I couldn't really move. I was able to turn my head a little bit. And there, standing right beside me, was an apparition of a woman identical to me as an old woman, as I appear now, only with a head full of gray hair. And wearing a beautiful dress with leg of mutton sleeves, you know, the puffy sleeves with the pearls down the she just smiled at me, and she was a mirror image of reflection of me as I appear now. And it really freaked me out, honest to God, Chris. It really did. I thought, oh my God, oh my God. It was the first time, I had studied and read about the possibility of reincarnation, but it was the first time that it felt real to me. Like it was absolutely entirely possible that I had lived in that house before. And it was on the day that we moved out of the house that I told my mother. Everybody in the family saw her, but she was standing sideways when she appeared, and then she disappeared. I saw her face. And it was the day that we moved out that I told my mother about that. And she said to me, I always knew we bought this house for you.
Oh my goodness.
Wow. It's heavy. That's fascinating. And I think that's more fascinating than what's in the movie. To see yourself like in an interdimensional way.
Yeah.
Like there you were, 100 years prior or more, staring back at yourself. And that's just amazing. I know we've had
it was disturbing,
talking
but she seemed so kind.
I feel like this is real stuff. When you say reincarnated, that was you. This really happens. Near-death experience people come on, they talk to us, and I know you. Of course, you've gotten to talk to so many people that, it's made me a believer in reincarnation. I do think we come back.
Well, I've always wondered whether or not we were recycled souls, but for me, it was counterintuitive because I had always felt like such a misfit on this planet that I didn't think that it was even possible that I had been here before. There was nothing about Earth that seemed in any way familiar to me, that I was like some clerical error had been made in the universe, that this was not where I belonged. And the only place that has ever felt like home to me ever in my whole life was the farm. And I think it was because, as I've described it so many times, as a portal cleverly disguised as a farmhouse, it was the place where I felt most at ease, because I felt like I was in multiple dimensions simultaneously, which is why I saw my first apparition as flesh and blood, why he did not appear as a ghostly manifestation to me, but he did to my sisters. And then within a night or two of moving into the house, Cindy, who was only 8 at the time, started crawling in bed with me every night. And the first night she said, I hear voices in the room. Well, she was sharing a room with Chris, and Chris had a tendency to talk in her sleep. And when she said she heard voices in her room, I just assumed that it was Christine. And she said, no, Chris was sound asleep. She said, There are voices, and they're so loud, I can't believe they didn't wake up everybody in the house. They were so loud, I had to cover my head with my pillow, and they kept saying the same thing over and over and over again. They said it all together, speaking all together. And, so the next logical question is, what were they saying, honey? And that was the first time I heard the phrase, there are 7 dead soldiers buried in the wall.
Yeah.
That's right. Wow.
This is fascinating.
None of this made it into the film. None of it. And, I'm glad, because now I'm free to tell our story in my own way, which I've been working on for several years. And I want to do it as a docudrama, as a miniseries, because I want to do it on the small screen for several reasons, not the big screen. Well, first of all, COVID pretty much decimated, the theater business in the country. It's going to be years before we see blockbuster films again. But it's not even that. I think that it will have a farther reach. Bringing the true story to light is the most important thing to me. And if I do this as a miniseries on a network, and I'm hoping to, once we're prepared, take it to Netflix and say, here you go.
Be the way to go.
Yeah,
Then
definitely.
you can get into those details, because movies
because it really is so intense that I think people should have the ability to sit at home on their sofa in their jammies and their slippers with the pause button in their hands.
Yeah.
Or be able to get up and take a break from it when they want to.
Yeah.
You can't do that in a theater. It really is, to me, it's about the message. It's about letting as many members of humanity know as possible to have faith, because there is something beyond our mortal existence. I still can't tell you exactly what it is or why it manifests the way that it does, but the existence of spirits goes back in the literature of humanity as far back as the written word goes.
Absolutely.
This is not something that people just spontaneously created. Texts were written about this going back thousands and thousands of years. There's mentions of spirit and ghosts in the Bible. There's mentions of it going back even preceding the Bible by thousands of years, going back to Mesopotamia.
Our civilizations go, like Mesopotamian civilization wrote about it extensively, and they wrote about systems of magic, their gods. All this stuff is there, and the idea of spirits has always been there with us.
Yeah, it's not folklore, and magic is just science that we don't understand yet.
Agreed.
So this is, I think that the fourth dimension, the spiritual dimension, is not something that we should fear, but that we should welcome. I wrote about this a long time ago. I said, to be touched by spirit is a blessing, not a curse. It's that rare and precious glimpse into the realm from which we come and will all inevitably return. Be not afraid. My mother had it right all along. Fear the living, not the dead.
Oh, yes.
But she also thought that if spirit existed, that it couldn't hurt us. It couldn't harm us. And she was wrong about that. And she admitted that she was wrong about that.
That is kind of the thing. You don't necessarily know what you're getting into.
Right.
You think you have a mischievous spirit in your house, which we do. We seem to draw a lot of things. You never really know how powerful it can be or what it can do to you, till it's too late in a way.
Yeah. And that's why I tell people, I kind of, I had a little meltdown moment during the live stream. I've seen some behavior that I do not approve of in the paranormal community regarding my old family home. And people, the current owners have done everything that they can to make it accessible to people that are legitimately interested in investigating there, but sometimes people take advantage and they go in and they behave in ways that are untenable, unacceptable.
We can't agree with you more. We see that ourselves.
Yeah.
And we feel just like you. And we just got an emergency alert here. What is it for?
It's a tornado warning.
Here.
Yeah.
In Rhode Island.
In Rhode Island, yeah.
I'm sorry, Andrea.
We're in Lincoln.
Wow.
We're
I didn't do it. It's not me. I did not do it. I'm not that well connected.
We could see Cumberland out our window, which of course you're not too far from Harrisville.
So sorry about that.
Yeah, sorry about the beeping.
Yeah.
Just be careful. Just be careful because they come fast. I've lived through 2 of them. They come fast.
Wow.
They're unpredictable, and you don't have time to get the hell out of the way. You don't.
Okay.
All right. Yeah.
I hear some noise outside, but no, that's cool. Sorry, that threw me off my game. Tornado warning. Okay. Great. Yeah, we don't know what we're getting into now. There's. Let me go here. House of Darkness, House of Light. Your book trilogy. They're big books. There's a lot of information in here. So when you say a Netflix series, oh my gosh, I would would binge this. That would be it. You wouldn't see Kristen and I for days. We'd just be in there watching it, watching every detail, rewinding. Did you see that?
Yep.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
This was more of a portal area. There wasn't just quote unquote ghosts and spirits. There were other entities other activities going on as well, right?
Yeah, but my sisters did not want me to include my relationship with the galactic family in the books. And so I adhered to their request. They felt that it would muddy the waters. They thought that I would be taken more seriously telling the story of the ghosts and spirits. You know, my attitude about that was, oh, great. So allergy season. It's always allergy season in Florida.
It is.
They thought that I would be taken more seriously telling the story of the spirits and interacting with dead people than with the sentient, prescient, technologically advanced beings that are circumnavigating the globe in numbers that we cannot even fathom. They did not want me to go there. I think my sister Christine said, "You're not going to write about your little friends, are you?" Oh my God, really? Yes, because I did have my first conscious contact. And I say that deliberately that way. My first conscious contact with extraterrestrials when I was 13 years old, and it was at the farm. And we had several incidents where other members of my family, my whole family, saw things that happened there that were not about spirit. And in fact, I would say that because there was such a melding of dimensional activity at the house, I think that there are probably certain circumstances that occurred there that we mistook as, spiritual paranormal activity that was actually them. Although, I don't know that for sure, but I wrote the trilogy excluding all of it. And then 8 years later, I wrote my last book, which I've been selling it privately for 2 years because it is so intense that I just didn't think that the world was ready for it yet. I really didn't. And I'm getting ready to release it internationally soon when I'm absolutely satisfied that it has everything in it that I want included. But it's called A Wonder to Behold. And it is its subtitle is Guideposts for Intergalactic Engagement with Humanity. Basically, it's a how-to guide about how to connect with extraterrestrials who are here in unfathomable numbers and always have been and pose no threat to humanity and, in fact, might help us save ourselves from ourselves. So, I have no fear of them at all. And I had my first flyby or drive-by viewing when I was 13 years old.
And you mentioned conscious engagement as opposed to an unconscious engagement.
I feel certain that they had connected with me prior to that, but that I did not know. I was just too young to make the connection. I was just too young to understand what I was sensing or feeling. I remember as a little kid having lost time. I just didn't know that that's what it was. I remember going to bed at night and becoming in, I guess, what would be described as a lucid dream, becoming a very large raven and flying around the world, looking at the world and going back in time and looking at the world how it used to be before it was even colonized by, Western Europeans. It was absolutely magnificent. It was so beautiful, and what 6 or 7 year old has, technicolor dreams of the world the way it used to be. I have to feel that there was, that I was being primed, that I was being shown something, gifted with something at a very early age. I know I came into the world being able to communicate with animals, being able to literally speak their language, to understand what they were saying. I thought everyone could. I thought that if I could, everyone could. I came into the world being able to read sheet music.
Wow.
I thought everyone could. I really did. I thought that everyone could. I was composing music when I was 4 or 5 years old. I wrote my first book when I was 5 years old, and I did all the illustrations myself, courtesy of Crayola. And and I came to understand that I was different, that there was something different about me, and I felt very, very much a misfit on the planet for a very long time. It was not until in my late 40s when I began to write what was supposed to be one book and turned into 3, because there was just too much material to put in one, that I was here for a very specific purpose and reason, and that was to open the eyes of humanity so that we stopped perceiving ourselves as 3-dimensional beings and began to understand that there is a 4th dimension and a 5th dimension and beyond. And I think that that's my purpose here, and that all of the experiences that I have endured in my lifetime led me to this point where I am the messenger now, and I have a very important message. And I think I also had to get to a point where I just did not care who believed me or not. I just, got to an age where I didn't need anybody else's acceptance, and I did not care about their rejection. I just did what I knew that I came here to do, and have continued on that path ever since. So, and that's one of the things about The Conjuring that I think is important to discuss, because in the grand scheme of things, I think that the film did get it right. It leaves people with very distinct impressions, and a real karmic, cosmic, and emotional imprint. Anybody that sees the film walks away from it, whether they verbalize it as such or not, they leave feeling that good conquers evil, that love conquers fear, and that the Perron family endured an extreme haunting that they all survived. And all of that is true. So in the grand scheme of things, they got it exactly right. It would have been impossible to compress 10 years with a cast of characters, living and dead, that are too numerous to mention, into a 2-hour film. It would have been impossible. And Absolutely. I think that they did the best they could.
Yeah, especially now we're talking about these other kind of experiences where we're getting into alien. Or do you believe that they're alien, like from outer space, or do you think they're just interdimensional right here within our
portal.
own consciousness. We
Right.
just don't have the sensory systems, the five senses
Right.
to really see them all the time.
Well, I think it's probably both. I think that there are those that live among us, and I do believe that the earth is littered with hybrids. I think it's absolutely plausible that I'm one of them, which is why I've always felt a little weird in my skin and this, bag of bones that just feels like very heavy and very oppressive in 3D.
Yeah,
I'm walking, with
We relate
with
to
lead weights on my feet.
talk about that often.
We do. We talk about that often. We're
These meat
meat
bags. Walking around in meat bags.
Yep.
Suits.
I have all the markers that have, through the research done in hybrids around the world. They generally come up with 3 markers for hybrids, and that is firstborn or only child. Second being someone with blue or green eyes, and the third, the Rh negative blood factor. And I have all 3.
I am all
You do
3.
too.
And Anne-Marie Young
was
just said that.
commenting. Yeah. Asking because she is as well, too. I think,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Right. I am not Rh negative, but Kristen is. You are. Our friend Anne-Marie.
I'm the firstborn.
well.
I'm the only child. And I have that.
We're
and I
just going
have
to
blue
ask you
eyes.
if you were.
I knew I recognized you, Kristen.
Yes. Another soul sister. I love it.
One of my own. One of my own. And I'm not afraid of that. I think that's fascinating and marvelous. And it leads me to believe that I'm one of the ground crew, that I'm down here to do their good work down here. But yeah, I think that, going all the way back actually to the 30s, people think that the Roswell incident was, the first one. That's not true.
No.
No. If you go back into ancient history, there's not only representations in art, but also in writing of the gods that came from the sky and taught us to do this and taught us to do that and brought us technology and brought us, I think that I think personally, and I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. You both know me. I'm not out here to convince or coerce or anything. I just put this out. People can take from it what they will. But I really do believe that we are them and they are us, and all of us are one. That we are consciousness and existence, that we are shared. Most of the races that have been identified visiting Earth are humanoid. Not all, but most. And there are some that have belief systems very much akin to our own. The Pleiadians refer to what we call God as the prime creator. So we're not that different. They're just, extremely advanced civilizations. And they're worried about us because they know we're on the precipice of self-destruction. They started showing up in droves. If they could get here, started showing up in droves around the time that we started exploding nuclear bombs on this planet. And as my friend, the late Paul T. Hellyer, former defense minister of Canada, once said, they looked down upon us and said, "Oh no, the children are playing with matches."
Yes.
So,
I love that man. That man was so great.
Yeah,
great.
He really was. I told Chris a lot about him, and we needed to watch him more. And then he sadly passed away. And
the overwhelming message. And you look at the writings like Ray Anenda's book with the free studies that are out there. The overwhelming message is that it's positive and are kind of looking out for us. Now, there's a certain percentage, and it's a small percentage, that people find the abduction phenomena, really an offensive thing and bad. And we have friends that, correlate that with demons and things of that nature. And they might be right, but it's a very small percentage. The overwhelming message, like 95% of people's impressions of abduction phenomena, is they would do it again. there's side effects that Ray talks about called like contact modalities, where people have these interactions and then they come back and they maybe psychically gifted, or they lucid dream more, those kind of things. I think that's fascinating. It's almost like brings it out of you. It sounds like, you know, you had them to begin with, and maybe it's from having a reincarnation in many lifetimes that you just have these skills with you wherever you're born. You know, for lack of better words, you know, or someone slipped past the goalie and I go, oh, she's open to you know, talking to the aliens, if you will. And I'm going to put that in quote, because I'm not so sure that they're always from space, but I don't know.
I don't even refer to them as aliens. That word is disparaging to me. It has a negative connotation, especially in recent years. And it's offensive to me. And I'm not saying, you know, don't use it. Most everybody refers to them as aliens. But I call them the galactic family because I love them and I know that they love me, and I have never felt any fear. I have never been harmed. I have only been helped by their presence in my life. I have seen things that are so extraordinary that I feel like if I dropped dead in 5 minutes, I would have lived the most extraordinary life that anyone ever could have. If I never had another sighting, I would be satisfied with what I have seen, what I have experienced already. I am just deeply, deeply humbled and grateful for the connection that I have. And I, you know, for me, it's all about consciousness. To me, it's all about all existence being one existence, that all life is life. Everything is one thing. And I don't think that we are going to even be able to begin to save ourselves from ourselves until all of humanity has a wake-up call and the realization of our oneness, not only with each other, but with everything else in existence. Now, we all know people that we're not particularly fond of, that, you know, might seem mean-spirited or ignorant to us, that we keep, you know, a safe distance from. When I come across people like that, my safe distance is like the other side of the universe. Like, don't even get near me, because I don't want your negative energy. I do not want your vibe. It is anathema to me. But I also find that the vast majority of people that I interact with, particularly in the paranormal field, are the happiest people I know are obsessed with death. I mean, really, it is, I don't know what it is, but it is. And I think it's because we are the explorers, we are the seekers, and we are the seers. We are the experiencers, we are the contactees. We are, you know, we have so much in common with each other that our differences, the discrepancies between us, are meaningless, because we all have the same intention, and that is to identify and to share what we've learned while we're here in soul school on Earth. And unfortunately, in soul school, the test precedes the lessons, and we are exceedingly slow learners. So, you know, that said, we kind of have to help each other find our way in the dark. And that process brings us together. I have also found in recent years that we've been finding each other in droves, that we've been connecting in profound ways with each other, those in the spiritualist community, those who kind of flew above the radar, operated independently, did their own private research, were very, you know, individuals that were prone to solitude, individuals that would only seek out others if they needed more information, but would not necessarily be willing to impart information because they did not want to be judged. They did not want to be berated. They did not want to be dismissed and rejected for their own belief system. I've also been very tough on the government regarding release of information about the extraterrestrial presence on this planet and around it. In my latest book, I refer to them pretty exclusively as the lying liars who lie. Those that have come forward say, well, most of humanity, they're just not ready for this, and it'll fracture belief systems and it'll create chaos, and that's a bunch of BS. All they want to do is just preserve their own power structure that they created. That's all they want to do.
That's it.
And use that fear.
And use that fear and manipulate us. And,
it's that way.
Feed us a spoonful of this and a spoonful of that, like we are babies being served pablum. Humanity is ready for this. Humanity is absolutely ready for a dissemination of the truth. We are. And they're not willing to impart it because, I know, Sandy, I can't help myself. I mean, really, I'm a minister now, and I'm the most foul-mouthed minister you would ever run across, and I am really cleaning it up for this show tonight. I got to tell you what, because I could go off like nothing you have ever heard.
Go off.
I no longer demand disclosure the way I once did in an almost militant way. I don't anymore. I don't care. I don't believe them. They're liars. They're just preserving their own power structure, and they're trying to maintain this, this illusion of having some control. None of us have any control at all, and to perpetrate and perpetuate these lies, and to human beings are fear-based carbon units anyway. It is very easy to feed into that. It really is. And so what they feed us is fear, and try to, instead of representing what they know to be true about our star sisters and brothers, try to make them a threat. Well, if they were a threat, they could have done whatever they pleased with us thousands of years ago. They've been here. They're not. The point I was going to make earlier, Chris, is that they're no more alien to this planet than we are, which is why I do not use, they're not foreigners. They're just as familiar with Earth as we are.
Sure. It's the consciousness that's the key, because we are, like you mentioned, carbon-based life forms. There's only a few basic elements on this planet. And you cannot tell me that is, the difference between us and a tree and this or that. It's all the same ingredients, yet we have this consciousness. And I believe all those things have consciousness. We think we talked a little bit about that at the Mass Paracon. Panpsychism is a theory that we really like, our philosophy, I should say, not necessarily a theory, that anything can hold a consciousness. Yeah. And that is truly what the life is. It's like the eyes of God. That's why an inanimate object can become a haunted object, because a consciousness can enter it because it has the right materials. Yes. All the same materials, right?
Did you know that when trees are planted beside each other, that they intermingle their roots and hold hands? Yes. And that when one is cut down and dies, the roots tighten around each other like, oh, please, oh my God, please don't take me off. It's sad. Anybody that knew the life of trees, really knew the life of trees, would never, ever cut down a tree. Never.
Right.
They know their own. They know their own
offspring. They will tend to them more than they will from another one.
What is it? I'm sorry. The mushrooms. The mycelium.
The
mycelium network allows them to communicate. Fascinating. Like how much is involved there.
It is.
The
tree is.
Like I said, we know nothing compared to what there is to know.
But
that's right. We're just
it's amazing.
Scratching the surface a little bit. That's all we can do right now.
Which is why when I hear someone declare themselves as a paranormal expert, my head explodes off of my shoulders. There's no such thing.
No.
There's no such thing. In the same way, there's no such thing as coincidence. That is a word we made up to explain away the otherwise inexplicable events of life. And, when people refer to magic, magic is science we don't understand. It doesn't mean that magic does not exist. It just means that it's a form of science that we do not yet comprehend. We're infants absolute infants in terms of our comprehension, our perceptions. We're still coming out of the age of Pisces that was almost narcissistic, and coming into the age of Aquarius that leads us more to altruism. And if we make it into the fifth dimension, where we make our spiritual ascension in terms of our consciousness and are able to interact with the cosmos and understand our place in it. And the jury is out on that in a big way. It really is. I think.
I'd agree.
I have to hold out hope, because if I don't, and also being from Rhode Island, where, that's our theme, we've got the anchor that keeps us grounded, and hope is the mantra.
Yeah.
I have to hold out hope for humanity. I hate to think we're as stupid as we appear to be. I really do. I hate to think that, because
we agree.
It's really, it's just,
yeah.
I have no tolerance for willful ignorance. In the age of global communication, it's a choice that we make, whether to be informed or uninformed or misinformed. We all have access to the World Wide Web of information. Unfortunately, through it is scattered a lot of deliberate misinformation that comes directly from our own government, that is supposed to be watching out for us, and is instead vilifying those that care more for us than they do. And that makes me nuts.
You have to understand that this world is created in a way that we're kept busy all the time, right? You're wondering about your place in the world, and you're now you're in an age where you can say, like, I don't give a shit anymore. I'm just going to say my piece. But it's not unintentional that you felt differently growing up. It's not unintentional that we all feel we have to work overtime and do all these things and never stop to think about
keeps us distracted, dear.
Exactly. Stay distracted.
Keeps us from thinking.
Keep
That's
quiet.
the last thing they want.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yep. There is an established archetype, and someone from within it who was the president when I was born. And that was Eisenhower. The last thing that he said before he left office was beware the military industrial establishment. Beware.
Military industrial complex. That's right.
Yep.
Yeah. Where the quote? That's true. Oh, and get back to aliens. I think you're right. Alien is a little offensive. I agree with you. I immediately think of something's going to come out of the mouth, and that is not a good way to think about them. I like space intelligences. That's one that gets thrown around here and there, and I think that's a gentler way of saying that.
Yeah, I like
that. But space intelligences. We'll go with that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you had contact with these as a young child, and it was contact in that property. And do you think there's something about the property itself that it makes it that kind of portal window area that allows the viewing of multiple paranormal phenomena?
45 years after I witnessed, as of 3 weeks ago, I'm a 50-year conscious contactee. It's just been 50 years since I saw what I saw. That was my personal paradigm shift and changed everything. And it was right on the front lawn of the house that you have on your backdrop. I don't know. I know that I had lost time prior to that. I know that I had other experiences prior to that as a very young child. But I never felt any fear. I never felt any threat. I didn't feel traumatized at all. But when I saw what I saw, 45 years later, I found out that the flotilla of ships that I saw pass directly over the farmhouse first appeared on radar up over Nova Scotia, came right down the eastern seaboard, went to southern Maryland, hopped over the pond, made a tour of Western Europe, and when the Royal Air Force of England got their fighter jets out after it, scrambled them, and sent them up to go see what it was, it disappeared in a split second over the North Pole. It took 45 years before I found out that I was not the only one who saw that. There were 10,000 reports worldwide. However, based on the humanity, the complex of cities that it went directly over, 60 million people should have seen it. 60 million people. It went directly over the heads of 60 million people. Why did so few people even see it?
Sure.
Let alone report it.
Asteroids that get seen by more people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have to think if, one extrapolates it out logically, there were only some of us that were supposed to see it, some of us capable of seeing it, that it was cloaked, and some of us had the ability to see it. And if 1 in 10 reports, and I think it's probably closer to 1 in 100 that reports, MUFON didn't even exist yet that I know of. I don't think so. Certainly not widely known. There was no place to report it unless you called your local fire department or the police. And who was going to do that?
And nobody would believe you. They wouldn't believe you to begin with. So
that's right. And I was a little kid. Who was going to believe me?
So on top of that,
it changed everything for me. And it brought me a kind of a peace and a comfort that nothing else ever has. I think that the most comforting knowledge I've ever gained in life is that we are not alone in the universe. That's it. We are not alone. And we've never been alone.
Yeah, we agree.
We definitely
We're with
agree.
you 110% on that. I find comfort in the idea of reincarnation as well.
I don't want to come back here. I do not want to come back to Earth.
You could come back and maybe better Earth.
No.
Things could get better. Maybe we'll get
there.
I
no. When I'm the hell out of here,
change.
I'm out of here. I don't want to come back. I don't. It's I find 3D extraordinarily oppressive, extremely painful, filled with grief and loss, deep sorrow. I'm far too empathetic to be on this planet, and now I'm at a place where I'm at a different place now, as we're in the midst of this global pandemic. And I spent the first year of it grieving for every life lost, just as though it was a family member. I've done a complete 180. I'm done. I am done. I'm all done caring more about people than they care about themselves. I am done. I'm done with it. We've got still 100 million people in this country that are unvaccinated, and we have efficacious vaccines that have been proved to work. Nobody has died from a vaccine. They're dropping like flies from COVID, and they're like, oh, no, thanks. No, thanks. Really? And I don't care who I piss off when I say that. I don't care. I believe in science, and we were gifted with vaccines at a faster rate than we have ever developed vaccines in the history of medical science. And if anybody has a question left in their mind about the efficacy and the necessity to vaccinate and save each other on this planet, please read a book called The Code Breaker by Walter Isaacson, one of our great scholars who is a professor at Tulane University. He wrote the story of the woman that cracked the mRNA code that is being used to basically suffocate COVID.
Right. What's inside the vaccination. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. It's not a nanochip. You want a nanochip? Pick up your phone. Here's your nanochip. You want to know that it's a nanochip? Let me tell you how you can know. Start talking just amongst yourselves, start talking about your favorite kind of toilet paper, and then go check your news feed 5 minutes later.
No, we know this.
Yeah.
You don't even
We
have
talk about
to look
this all
it
the
up.
time. It's amazing.
I'll say, I don't like this commercial. I'll say shampoo. That's our makeup. And I swear it comes on.
And
Right, at a
that's what
commercial.
seems to fill our feed after that.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, obviously there's metadata, and a terrible name for
Yeah, but
Facebook,
they're listening. Yeah.
you know, but they are listening too. It seems like they are listening. You know, I agree.
Yeah.
It's amazing because there are
I
things
had on a World Awakening last night. I need to get you guys on a World Awakening. We'd have a laugh riot. It would be great. But last night I had a brilliant man, James Martinez, who has been flying over the radar for decades. And he and I have agreed that the time is now to speak the truth, to put it out there. You know, we don't agree about everything, but for the most part, I think he is spot on. He is as well connected in the science and technology and ufology fields as any human being I know, other than, you know, maybe Grant Cameron. You know, there's a few others that, I mean, he's worked with John Mack. You know, he knows all of the principles, the giants upon whose shoulders we stand in terms of research.
He was just something else, that guy. And I believe he was also one of the first people to do like a large scale survey of alien abduction phenomena and like what it came back as. And again, the overwhelming numbers were positive.
Yeah.
You know, which
and receptive
good out of it. Yeah. Or
even,
they want it to occur again.
He has even posited the notion, the theory, the concept, whatever, that none of us go unwillingly. And I think that that's probably true. I really do. And you know what? But, you know, here's how screwed up we are, really, how screwed up we are. Whitley Strieber, who is one of the bravest of the brave,
just thinking
that wrote Communion decades ago and followed it up with Transformation, 2 brilliant books, has basically been shunned from the field. And his benefactors have just fallen to the wayside because he reconsidered his experiences, and what was once horrifying to him, he now embraces, because it utterly and totally changed his life and changed humanity by having the experience that he did. He felt that he was chosen, that his family was chosen, and now he has spoken about them in recent years as being, you know, very loving toward us and just wanting to help us in whatever way they can without actually interfering with our own spiritual ascension and our own evolutionary process. And suddenly he's persona non grata in this field, because he's not focused on anything that is negative or scary or, you know, fear-based. Now he's embracing of this incredible phenomena that is occurring all over the planet to millions of people. And that's tragic. That is absolutely tragic, because he is a bright light in the firmament, and an intellect to be reckoned with, and a voice of reason. And for him to be treated so shabbily by so many because he did a 180 emotionally on what it meant to him to have this contact is unacceptable to me. And, you know, those people can go piss up a rope as far as I am concerned. You know, I figured out a long time ago, I am not here for everyone. I'm not, apparently, you know, neither is he. But it's just a shame. It's just a shame. And nor am I concerned anymore at all about disclosure from the government. They're not credible. They are not a credible source of information.
Not at all.
We are the credible source of information. We are the credible people with incredible stories and with the balls to share them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I can't agree with you more. They're never going to let any kind of disclosure or whatever come out. They're never going
I
to say
should have
something.
said courage instead of, the more vulgar choice, but
Oh, no, the
I get a
vulgar-
little bit, I get a little bit, I
This is
get
big.
riled up.
You can say whatever you want to say here.
That's right.
This is an open platform.
That's why I love StreamYard for my show. And anybody that's interested in getting into the minutia and go really taking a deep dive down the rabbit hole, please go back and to Andrea Perron YouTube and watch my show from last night. It's on KGRA. It's in syndication now.
Okay, you're on KGRA. I know I've seen you on Facebook with World Awakening.
Yes.
What are some of the best ways for people to see World Awakening?
It has multiple platforms now. We do it. We do it on StreamYard, which I find a very stable, very welcoming, warm, comfy place in cyberspace. I really love StreamYard. But it goes live out on KGRA, and from KGRA syndicated all around the world. So my audience just increased exponentially, which I'm grateful for. Because what's the point of having an important message if no one's listening?
Exactly.
Exactly.
Great. Yeah.
I agree. And I think it's a wonderful platform if you're, looking for a good platform. It is definitely more stable, or has been in our experience, than our prior product we were using was called Melon, and we liked Melon. It had a lot of features that StreamYard hasn't actually adopted all of them yet, but our guests had trouble. And if your guest can't get on, or you're going crazy before the show, what's the point?
Yeah. So we had a mini mental breakdown last week, and went
we switched last Saturday.
Our friend Robert Riggy
right before
was on. Hi, Robert. And
hey, Robert. He's out there as well.
And we were like, that's it. We're doing StreamYard.
We're moving.
That's it.
And it's been good so far. We have no glitches. Our videos play well. We had problems with videos hanging and all kinds of stuff. So
it was terrible.
and I think that all of us should say, oh, thank you to the World Wide Web for not crashing, when suddenly on March 11th of 2020, we all had to go virtual in order to communicate with each other. That's right. Like the whole world shut down at once. And thank you, God, that the internet did not crash. Because where would we be without it? Where would we be?
I probably would have read more books.
Yeah. Wouldn't have work or anything, and the kids wouldn't have had school, but
I don't know. I guess it's good and bad, but that internet does help for sure. You do a lot of research.
Yep.
I don't know. On the other hand, too, I think that it is important, and one of the things that James was talking about last night is helping people who are caught up in mind control, of which I think there's no shortage.
Oh, no.
How to break that cycle, how to get away from this interconnection that we have with our own technology, where we're being fed so much misinformation, the profuse lying, the gaslighting, the issues that go on. This hasn't ended. This is an ongoing scenario, and it's a scary one. So what he suggests to people is that you tune out, turn off, unplug for a couple of weeks, and go out barefoot and stand in the grass and feel the earth beneath your feet. Look up into the firmament and make your cosmic connection with your creator and the creation that way. Because we are, I sometimes make fun about it. I'm like, when I'm lecturing about this, I say, the technology that we've been gifted with is the technology that is enslaving us. And I'll say, well, there are there's no indication that humanity has been enslaved by extraterrestrials. And then I do this.
It is so true. Would this not have been a science fiction movie, 30 years ago, where people walked around staring at their hands in the little black boxes? It would have been a total science fiction horror movie, but it is our reality today.
Yeah, and it is our reality today.
But you
and
wonder.
it's so ironic. It's so counterintuitive, that we're so busy with our heads in our smartphones that we fail to look up, the most,
what's up there?
Yeah.
The most beautiful spectacle that a wonder to behold,
Literally.
It's my book title is not just about the vessels that I see and the beings that I have been in contact with. It's about the freaking universe. It's absolutely amazing. Pay attention. Look up.
We miss it. And I hate to say this. We smoke cigarettes, and this is not a healthy message.
No.
I do not encourage
Oh,
people.
they're nutritious and delicious, darling. I'm counting down the minutes till I can have another one.
I think you and I smoke the same brand, actually. I noticed that at the Paragon. But because we go outside and smoke like at night and things, and we look at the sky and we take a break from the phone.
Yeah.
We got more sky time than I think the average person. And it's a good thing.
Bigfoot and the Bunny was actually based on
That's right.
UFO
phenomena, sighting, just weird things happening. And I had said we both saw this. It's a UFO to us. I don't know if there's a scientific explanation for it.
It was orange.
But
there is a scientific explanation is that it's a UFO.
Yeah, this thing was moving. It was going way faster than a jet, but not as fast as a shooting star.
No.
And some other funny things that happened that day. And I said, it was in a new place. I was like, next thing you know, you'll see Bigfoot chasing a bunny, because we had bunnies in the yard and stuff. And that ended up being our show name.
Yeah, we were coming up with a name. I was only goofing around, and I'm like,
hey, how about that Bigfoot and the bunny? Yeah, that's a good name. People remember that.
But
it's so weird.
We've seen so many weird objects in the skies. No,
we've seen two
because
Starlink
we go outside people
deployments. Starlink, right?
Yeah,
which is really something to see, and people don't even know that.
Yeah.
It looks amazing when they're shooting off those satellites, 60 satellites at a time, each with like little rocket engines on them.
It looks like a string of pearls.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It
it's
really
right
is
there.
cool.
And, people
and that serves a great purpose. Ultimately, that will provide high-speed internet to everybody on the entire planet. That's a wonderful thing.
It is.
Yeah.
Get your face out of your phone.
Yeah,
exactly. That's what they did. Let me look that up on Google. Starlink. No, go look at Starlink.
It's
really fascinating to see that kind of tech in real life, and we've seen things we couldn't identify.
Yeah.
Have you ever felt like you were talking dirty when you said Google me?
Yes. Yes.
Google. I just Googled all over my phone. I don't know what that means.
I'm not even gonna go there, but
I can see you blushing from here.
Yeah, I'm sorry. He wouldn't. Of course I do. So
yeah.
Oh yeah. And then we'll just Bing it later. But, yeah, that's the other search engine, right? Bing, Google. I don't know.
Bing it later.
Bing it later.
Bing bang bong. Yep, there you go.
My God, I was just saying that. Bing bang bong.
Yeah.
Bing bang. Very nice.
The tornado didn't get us, and that's a good thing.
Here, but
I told it to go around you.
Thank you.
It would have really messed up the show.
It would have. I was afraid of losing power and everything else. And I'm just sitting here. I was talking to my friend Ann. I'm like, well, if the lightning doesn't get me, nor the tornado gets us, well, whatever. I'll just die happy anyway. One of them gets us. We'll just die happy. Because I'm on with Andrea Perron.
That's right.
That's what all I kept thinking of.
That's right. We wicked appreciate you taking it. I'm going to say wicked.
Yeah.
Because I can. And you can, and Kristen can. We can say wicked, but the rest of you people out there in the UK and doing anything, you can't say that. I mean, something totally different. If you live around here, you can say that's wicked cool, and that's fine. And we wicked appreciate you coming on.
Wicked awesome. It is wicked awesome. Well, and that's how I perceive our story, really. I mean, coming full circle back to it. Maybe it's just because I lived it, but I don't perceive our story as a horror story. I perceive it as a love story with a wicked supernatural twist, and really a story about enlightenment, not about the darkness, more about the light. My mother is the one that titled my books, House of Darkness, House of Light. She is the one that titled the books.
Wow.
And I was probably up to page 300 or 400. when she came over to me while I was working one day, and she said, "What are you going to call this?" And I said, "Mom, I'm too busy writing it. I don't even have an idea what I'm going to call it. What I will title it." And she just crossed her arms and kind of cocked her head sideways, and she said, "House of Darkness, House of Light. It was both." And then she turned and walked away. And I was like, "That's it.
That's the title.
It." Yep.
It's excellent.
That is, and it's appropriate. And that is life. Life is good. Life is bad. There is light. There is dark. That is the experience and the beauty. And that's what we get out of being the meat bag. Although it is a little tiring sometimes, certainly. It can be rough. And it's painful. There's pain and suffering, but there's joy as well.
Yeah, there is. And the thing is that they have to exist simultaneously in this realm. They do. Duality is real. Good and evil is intangible, but it's real. And nobody questions whether or not the moon is still in the sky on the night of the new moon when you can't actually see it. No one questions whether or not the orb is still there. Right. We continue to breathe invisible air. We continue to live on in this realm, trying to understand its complexities and its simplicities. And we challenge ourselves sometimes. I really do think one of the reasons why, and James and I were talking about this. James and I spent 2.5 hours on the phone this morning processing the show that we did last night for 2 hours. And, he's really an amazing man. And we were talking about, one being indistinguishable from the other unless both exist. So, we kind of went there. The only thing that dispels the darkness is the light. Everything right now at this period of time, everything that is toxic is rising to the surface to be cleansed by the light. Everything is. This is a time of tumultuous upheaval, societal, civil, gender-based upheaval, race-based upheaval. We're all just one race, but apparently some people don't seem to know that. And the difference between someone who is jet black and albino is 0.0003 genetically.
Yeah,
really.
Genetically, mushrooms in mice. So
yeah.
It's ridiculous.
I'm going to complain about skin color or sexual preference or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That people are, I don't know. I think you're right, though. It is coming to a head. All that information is out there, and there's a lot of unrest in the world. We all did get a lot of time to ourselves in 2020, and I think it's made some people think. Maybe reflect, maybe feel better, maybe not. I mean,
part of what has caused the upheaval, because for some people, it was too much time to think. The reports of mental illness, the reports of suicide, it was overwhelming. Abuse. It was just absolutely overwhelming to a very large group of people that were absolutely caught unaware, unprepared, and ill-equipped to handle it. For me, this, being sequestered at home, living a solitary existence, that was no big deal for me at all. I would prefer it that way, actually. There was no adjustment for me in terms of that.
We're like, well, this part's cool. I can work from home now.
This
Great.
is awesome.
I know. I called one of my producers about 6 months into it, and I said, we need to rename this company Global Pandemic Productions. We are getting a hell of a lot of work done. This is just amazing.
But the fear in the news and that kind of stuff, that's what got me the most, was the news. I couldn't watch it. I got to a point
couldn't watch it anymore.
Turn it on anymore. I literally could not watch the news, which was a sad thing. Of course, you want to. You're in a pandemic. You want to watch.
Well, here was the problem that I faced. I was ashamed because I have been lecturing about the pending paradigm shift for more than a decade. And when it got here, it leveled me. It absolutely leveled me. For the first couple, I was at the farm the day that the World Health Organization declared a global pandemic. I was supposed to take a flight back home to Orlando the following morning with 189 passengers on a plane. And when my dad and I got on the plane, we were 2 of 24. And TF Green in Providence was a freaking ghost town. And it's like, this is, and nobody knew about masks, and nobody knew, that this was an airborne virus. We didn't know what was going on or what this was going to become, but it absolutely leveled me. For the first 2 or 3 months, all I did was sleep, cry, watch the news, and eat ice cream.
Yeah.
Massive quantities of ice cream. Mm-hmm. Now, ice cream being a legitimate calcium source, it also put 20 pounds on my body that I had to beat off with a stick. But
yeah,
I see you laughing there, Kristen, because you know what? I suspect you did roughly the same thing.
Yes,
I did.
We gained COVID-19 pounds as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. COVID calories, baby. COVID calories. Pile them on. Comfort food. Bring it.
But at least I'm watching it less. My friend Nathaniel likes to goof on me. That I was like washing my steaks and going to power of Christ.
Oh yeah, we were doing that with the Lysol on all of our groceries.
Like oh God,
yeah,
I get the COVID.
Yeah,
so we relaxed a little bit, but we still keep our safeguards up.
Yes, I do too. I'm about to get my booster shot. I'm not of age yet, but I'm very close, and I'm just going to go into the pharmacy and just beg my way. Say, oh, like I'm half dead already. You better give me a booster. See what they say, because it's going to be still a little while before it's in my age group, because it's 65 and up. Well, I'm 63. Close enough. Jab me.
Yeah. Make the appointment. Just walk in. You can do that with like CVS or something.
Yeah.
They didn't ask me a lot of questions when I went. Yeah. We first went vaccinated.
Tight with the pharmacist. Hey.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and I am pretty tight with the pharmacist. She's actually a big fan, so I can talk my way into another shot of Pfizer. Give me Moderna. I don't care. Give me something. Bring it on.
I've just a lot, so you really, would think about you really need that booster. So
yeah, it's amazing.
Some good.
I know we're out of time.
Yes,
I know that we are. I really could not have enjoyed this more. I think the world of both of you.
Thank you. We feel the same.
Yes,
this has been wonderful. I feel like we could keep this up another couple hours easily. So
very easily. And I'll be happy to come back on your show. I will have you on my show. I think that we should, kind of like, remember the old SNL skit, Coffee Talk?
Coffee talk.
We'll have some coffee talk. Us Rhode Islanders. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll make the coffee. All right, let's sit down.
Okay.
Love it. I love it.
Thank you.
I love it. And I love both of you. And I'm so looking forward to seeing you next week.
Excellent. We will see you, and we love you. And thank you again for taking the time. I know how busy you are, so we really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. My pleasure. And thank you all to your viewers. I saw names from people from all over the world.
Oh, there's a ton of chat out there. Thank you, guys. Without all of you, there would be no show. So we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great night. Be in touch. I'll see you next week. Well, I'll bring my calendar and I'll bring my 2022 calendar, because I'm booked up till the end of the year. But I'm going to plug you right in January, and we're just going to pick up where we left off.
Sounds great.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. And we'll see you guys next week. Thank you so much.
Be the light.